love it. It's Super Bowl week. Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from LA. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Guys, how are we doing?
You feel go Saturday? You see it Saturday? Did you see what I saw Saturday?
Super Bowl week. Nobody cares about a sub-500 Lakers team. Nobody cares about the phony go.
Yeah, he real go.
You know, it's funny to me that the Bengals aren't due to arrive out here in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl until tomorrow, which seems kind of late, wouldn't you say?
And
I'm starting to wonder, should they even come at all? Yeah. Should they just stay home?
That's really normally Skip went Monday is the latest I've heard someone's coming, but I've never heard anybody coming.
Well, I think they might be afraid of the Rams.
We always got there on a Sunday.
Oh, everybody does. Comes on Sunday.
That is interesting.
I think maybe the Bengals might just forget about playing the Super Bowl.
They got there. They saw Odell balling in the playoffs.
We got no shot.
They're going to show up. We don't know what we will see, but they're coming. Oh, and you know your Lakers, Shannon. I guess we'll get to them later. But the reason we need to start by talking about the Super Bowl because the big matchup between the Rams and Bengals is days away right now, and Odell Beckham Jr. is looking to punch his golden ticket. The receiver has said, quote, "I know the opportunity that's at hand." And when asked about the opportunity to go from superstar to Super Bowl champion. So, Shannon, we're going to hear from all the big names during today's media availability, which is always fun. But would you agree that OBJ is the biggest star in this Super Bowl?
Yeah, when you look outside, Skip, we're not just talking about the game. I think if you take this, and this is the biggest game in North America. So when you think about the eyeballs that's going to be watching this game, when you factor in Asia, you factor in Africa, you factor in Europe, OBJ is the most recognizable name in this game. Now, is he the biggest star in the game as far as like if you just say the U.S.? No, I'm not going to. No, I don't believe so. But when you talk about world appeal, he has 15 million followers. No other NFL player has 15, maybe Tom Brady.
But I think he's number one.
Yeah.
Number one. So, Odell is number one.
So when you factor that in, Skip.
And you got to throw in the Twitter, it's not that much, but it's 4 million.
Right. So you look at almost 20 million followers worldwide.
Correct.
No other player has that kind of appeal.
No.
Skip, remember, he got a $5 million Nike deal for a wide receiver, not a quarterback. They normally reserve those for quarterbacks.
Yep.
He got that as a wide receiver. So it just goes to show you the appeal that he has and his reach that he has. So for me, Skip, I don't really think it's close. You look at the people from a LeBron being with LeBron or hanging with a Drake or hanging with a lot of the entertainers that he's able to hang with outside of the game of football. I don't think any other player, with the exception of probably Brady, but Brady isn't in this game.
Not.
So when you look at OBJ and you look at the Bengals and you look at his teammates, it's not even close, Skip. Nobody has the reach in this game that OBJ has. No one has the reach that he has. So for me, and this is also another opportunity, Skip, for him to silence a lot of the critics that said OBJ is no longer OBJ. He can't do what he's done. Skip, if you look at what he's done in the regular season since he's got to the Rams, he went from like 3.5 catches a game, 38 yards, to all of a sudden he's up to 6, almost 7 catches for 80 yards. So they've increased his opportunities, and he's made the most of that situation. But for me, Skip, I don't really think it's close. When you look at Q rating, when you look at, you factor in the countries around the world that's going to be watching this game, I guarantee you more people will know, that's Odell Beckham. Than any other player. Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Stafford, Burrow, Chase, none of them has the appeal that OBJ has.
Okay. Do you realize what an astounding statement you just made? So let me quickly run you back through my history of covering Super Bowl, shall we?
Yes.
I started with Super Bowl 10 in Miami. I was working at the Miami Herald featuring Roger Staubach versus Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers. And the two biggest stars in the game were obviously Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw, who's still a huge star, getting bigger by the day. And then we start to go into the Montana realm. And it seemed like every year Joe Montana was going back to another Super Bowl and winning another Super Bowl and MVP, although Jerry Rice won the one against Cincinnati. And then we go to this guy named Elway. You might remember John Elway,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And he was dominating a period where he just kept going to Super Bowl after Super Bowl, and he would be the biggest star in the game no matter who he's playing against, because could he get over the top, over the hump? And finally, with Shannon Sharp as his primary receiver, here they went with Terrell Davis running the football. All of a sudden, John broke through and won a couple of Super Bowls. But it just seemed like every year it had some. He was the featured piece of the Super Bowl, right?
Skip, it's always, with the exception of maybe the 2000 Ravens, it's always been about the quarterback.
Brett Favre had a little run. Then my man Troy Aikman and Emmett and Michael had a run through the 90s.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was all about Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. And he was going to be the star of stars in every one of the Super Bowls, right?
Manning.
And you could argue, there's some Mannings, there are two Mannings going on.
But in the Super Bowl, we're talking about just that game.
Yeah.
It's always been about the quarterback.
Always, all the way down to last year when we finally got Patrick Mahomes boy versus Thomas Edward. Here we go, right?
Yes.
And we had cavalcade of stars in that game, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you just told me something that I completely co-sign. That by far the biggest star in this game, and I love this guy, I'm intrigued, I'm on the edge of my seat for this game, but by far the biggest star is a receiver, and let me get this straight. Let me just double check my notes here. He made the Pro Bowl in his first 3 years in the league as a New York Football Giant. He was the toast of New York for those 3 years. He has not made a Pro Bowl for the last 6 years. So you just told me that a receiver who hasn't made a Pro Bowl for 6 years is going to be by far the biggest star in this game. And I say, why? How? Well, it has to do with the media age we're in. It's called social media, and it's about followers. It's about
name recognition.
Name recognition. And what happened in New York? How did he arrive? What happened on a Sunday night back in 2014 against my Dallas Cowboys? A game that, by the way, the Giants wound up losing 31-28. What happened in that game? This happened. Eli Manning throws it as far as he can, and Brandon Yu's car couldn't get there, and Odell one-handed it. And I believe it was Chris Collinsworth who said, that's the greatest catch I've ever seen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it? Yeah, it's up there. We've seen a couple since then that might rival it, but given the stage against my Cowboys in New York on Sunday night football, you can't get all that much bigger. Maybe Monday night would be slightly bigger, but did he not seize the moment?
Yeah, that was his first game, Skip. That was his first game in the NFL.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, and it was just bombshells went off, right?
Yes.
All over. We were talking about that catch for weeks to come. And then, as the Giants became a pretty good team, better than they were at that point, all of a sudden, Odell became the biggest soap opera in New York. And there are a lot of soap operas that are filmed in New York, right? And he became the biggest soap opera star in New York because what kept happening between plays, after plays, on the sideline with all of his antics. He would get into it with Josh Norman. There was that one classic game against Carolina. And I don't know what buttons Josh was pushing, but he pushed every one of Odell's buttons. And Odell went ballistic. He lost it. He lost his poise. He lost his mind in that game. Remember, after plays, he was getting a running start and going after Josh. And then we had the kicking net incidents where he's hitting it and then he's making up to it and proposing to it. It was just one thing after another. Was he not the biggest soap opera star?
Yes.
And then it was, is he happy in New York? Does he want out of New York? And then all of a sudden they do finally make the playoffs. And he takes his group of receivers to get ready for a playoff game up on the frozen tundra at Green Bay. He takes them to South Beach, and we see him on Trey Songz's yacht getting ready, basking in the Miami Beach sun to get ready for a game up on the frozen tundra. And Odell stunk in that game because he dropped an early third down pass, then he dropped one in the back of the end zone. And that was his first playoff game, and he left his mark in Lambeau Field by taking his helmet in the tunnel, walking to the locker room and just smashing a big hole in the wall. And the New York media just fixated on that hole in the wall because that became the story. And from there, New York finally just gave up on him and shipped him to Cleveland. I don't think Odell was ever happy there, but it was always Baker's fault. What's happening? But very quietly, what slipped under the radar, Odell had 3 surgeries in 4 years in Cleveland. 3 in 4 years. It's horrible. He's now 29, but I don't see quite the electric sort of burst and quickness and speed.
I think the opportunities weren't there. He's finally getting healthy. You're right. The last 3 or 4 years, when you start having hernia surgery, you had knee surgery. You have
an ACL.
ACL, right.
What's Brady say? That's a forever
right.
injury, right?
So he's had some surgeries that would impact that. But I think since being over a year removed from his last surgery, he's starting to look like the OBJ. Now, is he all the way back to the first 3 years OBJ? I don't think he's quite there yet. But another year, he's going to be just fine. And Skip, you're right. In New York, a lot of the negativity, Odell brought it on himself. The Cleveland situation, he didn't bring that on himself. They were looking for someone to blame why Baker hadn't taken that next step, because we saw a lot of guys skip in the second year. We saw Lamar Jackson. We saw a lot of the guys that came along, to Josh Allen. We saw them take that next step. Well, why isn't Baker taking that next step? Well, it's Odell. That's why. So now, all of a sudden, he's been removed.
By the way, I thought Baker did take the next step down the stretch of a year ago without Odell, but we can go back and forth on that all day.